Hey everyone, before I get into this video, there's a little thing I want to tell you about, and that is our Discord server. So recently, Phoenix has done a lot of work on the Bulkhead's Discord server, primarily to merge the Letters from Vega team with the Bulkhead's team, because there's a huge amount of crossover between the two. And what he's also done is opened it up to the public as well. So if you guys are interested in doing some more collaboration, or asking for a bit of help with these things, because these tutorials are not easy, like getting into this stuff is really difficult, then you guys are more than welcome to join our Discord server and kind of see what goes on behind the scenes, and kind of how some of the shots of bulkheads are created, like this one here, and kind of see who else is interested in this stuff, and maybe work together with some people that have the same interests as you. So if you're interested in joining our bulkheads, in joining Phoenix's bulkhead server, this is what it looks like here. So we've got a nice little public section here, so it's just got announcements, some updates. This is like media releases and things like that. We've also got a getting started section, which is like a little repository of all the links you'll need, including some Spectrum threads, nice little general chat, and then we've also got the creme de la creme, the CryEngineering chat. Now this is where a lot of the very cool stuff happens. And it's pretty much a go-to place. If you want a bit of help with this is the place to go. Alternatively, there's also the Spectrum thread I made, but Discord will kind of guarantee you get a bit more help. Also got Lumberjacking, which is for those brave souls, and if you're interested in the 3D modeling aspect, we've got an area for that as well, and somewhere for you to showcase your work too. So if you're interested in doing a little bit more collaboration, or maybe speaking to myself and the team and getting a bit of help, by all means feel free to join our Bulkhead server. You'll find a link in the description. And now I'm just going to kind of get back and get on with the video. So see you shortly. Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to continue on from what we did last time. And we're going to expand upon the ship setup bit, but I'm going to go over another important thing to be able to do, and that's asset modification. So if you remember last time, I kind of explained the 3 different techniques of creating a ship rig in CryEngine. There was the method that doesn't work and snaps everything to 0, but keeps all the animations. So if I were to take this guy, which is kind of broken, and then delete, and then Control Z, it'll snap everything back to place, which of course is not ideal to have to do every time you open the scene, but this does maintain the animations. And we've got this guy here, which has a parent, but then so everything works perfectly fine all the time, but if I were to animate, say, the thruster on the Gladius, the rotations here will not be translated, because all the geometry attached to this is parented to the parent node rather than the body. And I kind of went over how to set that up with the Merlin, if you remember, and just kind of walked over how to basically set it up and parent it all to a node, a single parent node. But as we saw with the landing gear animation, the weapon is not attached to the wing. And the reason we have to do it this way is because at the moment in CryEngine 5.4, attaching animated geometry to a ship in animated geometry to other animated geometry, that's a CGA on top of a CGA, or a CGA onto a character, such as a bulkhead's character, will crash the engine. So it needs to be converted to a static geometry file, a CGF file, in order to work properly. And that's what I'm going to go over today, because it's a good little look at the pipeline regarding asset modification and things you need to keep in mind when doing it. So what we'll do is we'll take the Gladius, and I'll convert the engine, the thrusters, and I will also convert the weapons as well in this. I'll just go over one, and then I'll just time lapse over the others, because the process is very similar. I won't really bother doing the same for the dash and the seat, because those can just be attached to a parent node, because they're not attached to anything in particular. Okay, so and the benefit for this as well is so that you can literally drag and drop in this as if it's a character, for example a Bulkhead's character or a Dalen from Lights of Vega. You can actually drag it in as an object already assembled, so you don't have to mess about with prefabs or layers and the like, which is pretty sweet. Okay, so let's get to it then. So before we begin, we just kind of need to get an idea on what assets we're going to modify. So for the engine, I know that's in spaceships, thrusters, Dragon, STC Blue, and it's this one here, main engine CGA. So if I just drag that in here, oh no it's not, yeah, sorry, it'll be the Aegis, Gladius, and then Dragon Stellar. Here we go. So that's what we're going to convert first. So what we'll do is, if we go into File Explorer here, I've just got another folder open at the moment just for the next part, so ignore that right now. Okay, so we go to, in my case I'm going to go to where the build is located, go to Objects, and Spaceships, Thrusters, Dragon, STC Blue, Aegis, Gladius, and here it is here, the CGA file. This is where it's going to get a little bit complicated, because what I had open here is another build, so I highly recommend having a separate copy of all the assets in a different location, and kind of using this as your depot for converting assets and the like. That way you're not really affecting the original geometry, especially if you've not got source control. It's very handy to kind of do it this way. So I'm going to go to the exact same location in where I've saved the actual asset. So this is not my CryEngine build, this is just part of my asset depot. I'm going to go to spaceships, spaceships, then thrusters, and then I'm going to go to Dragon, and then SEC Blue, Aegis, Gladius, and it's here. So to convert these, what we need to do is we need to use Heffay's converter. Now if you remember, you get this from, where are we? It's not quite this thread, this is it here. You can get it from this thread on Spectrum, I'll link it in the description. I've talked about this before. Why is it doing that? It should not be right at the bottom, I want to be right at the top. Where are we? Here we go. So for this part you will need Heffay or Markham's converter, and this can be found at this thread on Spectrum. I'll link it in the description below. And it's got his GitHub on there as well, and the latest version which you can download here. And this will work perfectly fine for this version of CryEngine, because we're not actually going to be using it straight off the bat. And he's also uploaded some tutorial videos regarding converting as well. I'm just going to do this from a layman's position and just kind of go over using it. But he does have his own tutorials, and if you want more details on how to use it, that's the best place to go. So if you just go on there and download it, and you can download it to any folder you like. I prefer to keep all my tools in one place. So this is my version here. This is we were kind of beta testing for him at the time, is why it says 10. And then just simply drag and drop, and it will convert it to a collada file, which is here. And now I'm going to open up Maya. You can do this in 3ds Max or Blender as well. They've got their own tools specific to 3ds Max and Blender. I don't know how to use them because I've never used them personally, but they can be used in that manner. Another thing we will need as well to consider is this Gladius_Dragon material. So within CryEngine, we just need to quickly just check, double check should I say, which material this engine uses. So we're just going to select the engine, and then press this icon here, get properties from selection, and it will find the material in the assets. So it's under Thrusters, Dragon, SC Blue, Aegis, Gladius_Dragon. So we can, for this, we can either use the one in the build, or we can use the one in the assets. It doesn't matter because they're the same, and you'll see why in a minute. So in Maya, I'm just going to make a new scene, just going to open up my pipeline tool, and I'm going to display the grid so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so all we have to do now is import the collada file we created from Heffay's converter. It does output OBJ as well. There's details about that in his tutorials, so I do highly recommend you check those out. But what we'll do here is go to File and then go to Import, and it will open up the import screen. and then what we'll do is just navigate to where our collider file is. So in my case it's in my build depot, and then files of type DAE FBX. And I like to use namespaces, so I'm going to keep namespaces ticked, everything else default, and import. And that will import the collider file. Cool. Okay, so when you import the object, it's going to look a bit like this, because the converter doesn't process normals properly, because CIG do something on the back end regarding normals that we're not completely sure what they do, but it does bring out a bit more detail in the object. What a normal is, it's essentially, if you take a vertex, like this one here, and what I'll do is I'll go to display, I'll do this, so I'll select the object and go to display, polygons, vertex normals. So you can see here that each vertex has a normal, and this basically tells, and each face has a normal, and this tells the renderer essentially which way is up. So you can see here that if the normals are facing kind of away from us, it's as if we're kind of looking at the back of the mesh, and if they're facing towards us, it's as if we're looking at the front. So we need to fix this. And the way we fix this is by setting the normals to face. So if I just select the object again and go to display, polygons, face normals, we can see that the face normals are facing the opposite direction. So what we're going to do is just set all the normals to vertex normals to match the face normals, and that will fix some of the issues. It won't make it a true to game representation, but it will make it a lot closer. So I'm just going to quickly save and then select the object. We're going to go to, well, first what we're going to do is merge all the vertices, all the duplicate vertices. So we're going to go to select the object, go into vertex mode, and then select all, and then go to edit mesh, merge, and then we'll set it to 0.001. As low as it'll go, and that will just get rid of any duplicate vertices. Okay. And then we're going to go to mesh display, set to face on the normals, and that'll set all the normals to the face, and then we need to soften them as well. So we'll go click it again, and mesh display, soften edge, and that'll soften the mesh. Much better. There might be some instances where it kind of looks a little bit wonky because it's not a smooth surface, like for example a staircase. So it's ideally go in and just change it there if it does look pretty bad. But this is kind of a band-aid solution, if you like, for many issues. And then what I'll do is just turn off the normals, so we can see what we're doing a little bit easier. Okay, so the next stage is we're actually going to export this thing. So what we need to do, remember the MTL file from earlier I talked about? You do need the Crytools installed for this, by the way. If you don't have the Crytools installed, you'll find them in your build. So if you go into the CryEngine root and then go to tools, and then there's thing here, Crytools installer, just double click that and it'll install the tools for you, and they'll show up on a Crytek tab here. I'm going to put more details about that in the description below. There's going to be a tutorial in there detailing how to install the Crytools in more detail. But within the Crytools, the main things we're going to be concerned about are going to be tools, export, and material editor. If you remember the MTL file we mentioned earlier, which is this gladiusdragon.mtl, and likewise the one in the well, that's the asset depot here, and this is the build. But it doesn't matter which one we use. I'm going to use the one in the asset depot just for simplicity. We want the different, just delete that. The different tools we're going to be interested in are going to be tools, export, and material editor. Just going to click on the load button there. So the first thing we'll do is create what's called a CryExport node. So if we go into tools, and we'll see we'll have it here, and we need to select the object, and we'll just click on create CryExport node, and then what I'm going to do is just paste in the name of the mesh that we copied across earlier. So in our case it's going to be Aegis, Gladius, Dragon, Stellar, STC Blue, and that's going to be it. And then file type CGF, create a group selection, and create group node. Click on create, and that'll put all of this within a CryExport node. And I'm going to delete the helpers because we don't need them for this case. And I'll delete that node we don't need. The next step is to load the material up. So this is one of the decent things about the latest versions and about using Collada, is that it maintains the material names. So this next phase is very simple. So what we'll do is go into the material editor tool, click on that, and we'll click on read material file. And now what we have to do is just navigate to the location where the mesh is saved. This can be in the build or it can be in your asset depot. It doesn't matter. And then we'll see the MTL file we're interested in, as we looked at earlier within CryEngine. We looked at the material it uses. So all we have to do is reference that and click on open. And in an ideal world, this comes up. So an ungrouped shader called Engine A already exists. Do you want to move it to the new material group? Yes, we do, because that will take all the materials in here and put them in the material group, which is excellent. Now this is important because what it will do, it will maintain the material IDs, so we don't have to make a new material for a new asset. We can just use the ones that already exist, which is brilliant. And then once we've done that, click on close, and then we can go now into the export tab. So if we go into export, we'll see here that our export node is loaded up here, and all we have to do is set the export path to where we want to save it. So in my case, I'm putting it in the build location, which is where you want to put it as well. I just put the two, I put the converted geometry side by side with the rest. So in my case, it's this location here, and click on save. And then all we have to do now is validate the scene. This sometimes comes up, and for the life of me, I'm not completely sure what causes it, but rest assured something does. So if it does come up, this invalid polygons error, just click on focus and just delete. Normally you won't notice anyway, and we'll just set the FPS to 30 FPS as well, and then revalidate, and we'll get no errors, which is excellent. So now we can export. So all we have to do here is select in the Cry export tool, select the mesh we want, and click on export selected. Excellent. So now we have pretty much converted this mesh from a CGA to a CGF, and the reason this is important, as I mentioned earlier, is because attaching a CGA file to a character, so this can be a ship, or it can be or just a bloke or a woman, it will crash the engine instantly, more or less. So this is kind of a workaround for that. So if we go into the CryEngine now, if you see I've got the character tool open here. And what we'll do is we'll create a quick character to kind of demonstrate this. So I'm going to go to spaceships, ships, Aegis Gladius, and you see I've already got Aegis Gladius assembled CDF as I showed off last time. And then what we'll do is put it together. So if we load up the ship here, you can see in the Gladius CGA, it acts as like a base skeleton. So if we were to play an animation on this Gladius, maybe not that one, we can see it's actually deforming the mesh. So see here? So all the animations play on here. So what we can do in this is, like I mentioned with that method that snaps everything to 0, we can permanently attach geometry to the joints, and this is fantastic for weapons or thrusters and the like. So let's do it. What we need here is, if I just select the CGF, so these are the ones that crash. These are CGA files. So what we're going to do is I'm going to change these to use the CGF file we converted earlier. You can see it's basically identical, which is brilliant. That's what we want. And that's it, effectively converted. Let's save that. Oops. I need to check it out in source control. So I'll just do that. So you won't have this problem because you're likely not going to be using any kind of source control if you're working on your own. I collaborate heavily with Fiendish Feather, so that's why I have to worry about source control. And because it's got server information and stuff on this, I don't really want to be sharing it too much, just in case. I'm just playing on the safe side a little bit. I don't think there's anything to worry about though. There we go. Just gonna check it out. But what I'll do, if I get his permission, I'll go through and actually talk about how to set up and use Perforce in the future. Because it is super cool. Come on, check out. Alright, well what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go around source control for now, and I'll just sort it out later. Okay, and then I'll just do the same for engine right, because we see engine left updated perfectly, so we just need the engine right to update. So we'll go into there, and then just select to CGF, save again, and I'm going to remove the seat, and I'm going to remove the interior, because these are still animated geometry, so I'll just save those there. So now, if we go into the scene, and say we want to bring in our new Gladius with the engines attached, we should be able to do that now. So if I go into ships, Aegis, Gladius, Gladius assembled. Ah, that'll be why so it just crashed, and this will be why it didn't save that one. So I need to just save that, save that properly. So as you just saw, that's why we have to convert the animated geometry to static geometry, is because it will crash the engine. In a spectacular display of nope. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay, cool. So hopefully when it works. So if I cut it, it crashed a couple of times. Ships, Aegis, Gladius, so the assembled CDF. Bring that in, hopefully it'll work. Yay! So now we got a version that has the engines permanently attached. Excellent. So let's do the rest. And I'll talk about how to actually attach them properly. So I didn't really talk about actually attaching it to the joints. So what I'll do, I'll time lapse it a bit, and I'll convert the rotary thrusters and the omni thrusters, and I'll show you how to attach those as well. It's quite similar to how it was done before, but I'll just time lapse it, get it converted, so you guys can see the process again, but faster. And yeah, see you in a few minutes. So what I'm doing here is sometimes when you load up two different objects that have the same material, you kind of get this issue where they kind of just give themselves a suffix 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, whatever it may be. So I'm just reassigning them to use the ones that are in the material here. So we can see here that something has kind of gone wrong. So it's using the proxy material when it shouldn't be. So this hasn't actually exported properly. So let's go into here. Nothing should be using the proxy material. That's the whole point of the proxy material. So I'm going to read the material file again. But what I'll do here is just close that, delete, and read the material file. Because I made an error. I did a doo-doo. Because what happened was I think the proxy material in here disappeared. But there shouldn't be nothing should be applied to it. So the metal A, so the metal A, what it was doing, because the proxy material didn't exist in the scene, everything here shifted up as if proxy was gone. So 2 became 1, 3 became 2, etc. So it kind of messed things up, I think. That's what I think happened. But it should be fixed now, so if I just export it, and it should hot reload, and there we go. Fixed. Beautiful. So now we'll just attach that onto the Gladius. So in the character tool, I'll open up the Gladius. So ships Aegis Gladius, and then Gladius assembled. We'll open the CDF for that, and I'll kind of go over how to attach it. So I've talked about how to create a character before. So to do that, for a ship, you just load up the CGA file, the Gladius CGA as a skeleton. Yeah. So what we'll do is create a new attachment, and there's loads of these attachments. So what I'm going to do is load up the geometry, and then we're going to be interested in objects, spaceships, thrusters, Aegis, winnowing. We want a CGF, which is this one here. Oh, that's the wrong name. So before I start using thruster, I'm going to rename it to what it should be. So you see, I'm making quite a few errors in this, and I'll just say they're deliberate. Why not? So you guys can see how I'm fixing them. See? Educational. Yes. Very educational. There we go. It's just fixed it. So I'll load up the geometry again. But mistakes happen, you know. Aegis winnowing, and I want the rotational thruster CGF. So what we'll do, similar to how we did before, we're going to attach this to a joint. So select the joint, and I wonder if I type rotational. Well, what we can do is actually filter out thruster. So we'll go wing left top. Okay. We might have to set an offset, which is a bit of a shame. Alternatively, what we can do, so we can do this two ways. We can offset it manually, like this, or we can do it in the source of the asset. So that's Y rotating in the Y direction. So if we go into this, and then say, so I'll just do that. Let's rotate it in the Y direction. So see, we've got Z here. So if I rotate, alternatively, set those two rotations to 0 because they weren't zeroed out. So if we just set those to 0 and 0 and 0 and 0, that should work. And then we re-export the asset. So that's one thing I didn't check. This was set to 90, and that was set to -90, which offset it. So hopefully it should look good now. Oh, yes, and alright, another thing, I forgot to rename that. I figured I should do that now. Okay, let's re-export. So if we go to, yeah, so I'm literally problem solving while I'm recording this, so this is going to be way longer than it should be, but it's worth it in my opinion. So oh, so we still have to offset it. Okay, I understand. That's fine. I'll just do that then. Yeah, there we go. -90. So there we go. We've got one. Now we just need to duplicate it. Let's create another. And paste. Thruster 2. And I'll call this attach to the left one. Now that's pretty much it. You just attach it to the joint like this, similar to how we did before. And there we go. Look. So that's how it should be, and then I'll just time lapse it while I do the others, and I'll do the same for the rotational, the omni thrusters as well. Alrighty, so that's those attached properly. So when we play an animation on the thrusters and stuff, it'll attach properly. Maybe the Gladius isn't the best example, but it's probably one of the sexiest. So deal with it. It's the same process anyway. Right, so we'll do the omni thrusters now. So geometry, we'll select a omni thruster. I was hoping that would work, but it didn't. Objects, spaceships, thrusters, Aegis, winnowing, omni. We want the CGF, not the CGA, otherwise we'll get crashes. So we'll pick a joint. So we'll filter out thrusters. We don't need to worry about retro thrusters because they're invisible. Front left top. Okay. So that's this one here. So all we have to do is rotate it in the X 90 degrees. Okay. And then I'm going to copy. Okay, so that's those thrusters applied. So if I just turn off the joints and save, this should work perfectly fine. You see on geometry, it updates and adds all the thrusters. Of course, particle effects is still going to snap to 0, but those you can kind of safely attach just to the parent node like before. So we can kind of use a hybrid version of the methods to allow us to animate ships without much work. So a similar method would be used, pretty much exactly the same method would be used for the weapons and seats and things. But that's kind of how you get assets converted and get them set up so you can actually modify the source assets if you wish, and that's how you do it while maintaining the sorry, and that's how you do it while maintaining the material IDs to allow, and which will of course allow you to do some pretty nifty things. Anyway, oh yeah, and that's also, you know, how to, that's the other method of ship setup as well, is doing it in the character tool. It also means you can animate stuff as well. So say, I don't know, say for instance you wanted to attach something to the ladder. So if let's take a look here. You see they got the ladder piece moving here? You can, the actual ladder geometry is that node. So say I make a new one and I like to maybe paste it, and then maybe I'll attach this to, you know, the ladder main, wherever that may be, and maybe set the thruster to 5 or something so we can see it. So if we can see here that when we play the animation, the thruster will actually move with the ladder. So if the likes of the Merlin and you're attaching a weapon to the wing, that's kind of how it would work, which is pretty nifty. But yeah, so that's kind of how you do it, guys. I will be doing a continuation where there is an error relating to the CHR params file. So if you get an error popping up, say when you use a ship called error CHR parameter, duplicate CHR parameters are not supported and the like of that, just go in and delete the CHR params file. Those are located with the ships. So if I go into here, spaceships, ships, in the case of the Gladius will be in here, and then if I filter it by type, it's down here, CHR params. It will mean you can't play animations, but I'll go over that in its own video because it is quite a big area you need to get around. But this video is already way too long. Anyway, thanks a lot guys, and I'll see you next week, and I'll